Hello, fabulous friends and fans. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah, and this is an impromptu special video on Saturn square Neptune. So right now we are in the middle of November 2015, and it will be in a few days that the first of three conversations will perfect between these two planets. We will have another perfection take place in June of 2016 and then again in September of 2016 as well. And I've been promising you this for a while. If you've been watching me regularly, I've been on YouTube since 2008. So if you've been watching my videos, thank you so much. Thank you for your trust. I'm so grateful for it. And now we are at a place. Collectively, we are at a place where it is something that needs to be talked about. And I feel that I need to talk about it as well. So I thought that this is the time to do it. And that is because just a couple of days ago, we had an attack that took place, a series of events that took place in Paris. And it has been very much an example of, and we are seeing now how these symbols are speaking to us in different ways and how they are reflecting our inner journey, our own individual journeys, but also our journey as a collective, okay? I really want to focus just on the symbols and how they are connected to what is taking place for us. I care a lot about not being biased, not putting my own politics and stuff into the mix. And I hope that my desire for the integrity of what I do and my respect for what I do and the tradition of what I do comes across in this video. That would be very important to me, is very important to me. So recently we had these attacks on Paris, and my own experience, a couple of things that I have observed as part of my own journey. This is probably the only time I'm going to talk about myself here. But I had recorded the weekly horoscope. I love connecting with you guys every week. And I was uploading it onto YouTube. And uploads take a long time here in Mexico. And I was uploading it, and it was like 4 hours into a 5-hour upload, and the electricity went out for a few seconds, as it does here in Mexico. And that was all that needed to happen for that upload to not work anymore, for me to have to start over again. And as I was starting over again, it was right at that time, like literally to upload it again, it was right at that time that we were getting news of Paris and what was happening there. And I am not very, I don't watch the news, right? I'm not very news inclined. My news pretty much comes from Facebook posts that my friends make. And of course, you hear about this, and there was so much sadness for all of us. I think around the world, there was a lot of sadness. And I wanted to acknowledge that. And so I put something in the front, like for a few seconds in the front, a few lines from a John Lennon song, Imagine. And it had the Eiffel Tower there as well, a glimpse of the Eiffel Tower there as well. And I think that a lot of people appreciated that. There was a little discussion there on the YouTube comments. And very soon, actually after it'd been uploaded and I was, preparing to rest, a discussion had already started online, which reflected itself in I think it was just a small part of the comments. And it was about how this event is getting a lot of attention, but actually there have been a series of events taking place around the world that have not gotten this reaction but have been just as tragic. And I thought, as I looked at this, of course, I'm an astrologer. And so to me, it was a very powerful demonstration of, the energy had started shifting very much. And to me, it was very much about this square between what's happening between Saturn and Neptune and how it is that we are now growing and moving forward through this time of transition. Before I talk about that, though, I just want to say one thing. Because I always say, it's why I do what I do. My mission in the world is to affirm that the universe is wise and loving. That's really why I do everything that I do, everything I put out. All my heart goes into my work, because that's what I believe that I'm meant to do in the world. And astrology has been this loved and cherished vehicle of mine that has allowed me to do that. And I want to say that we know, right, as a collective, we know that right now in our world, more people are living in peaceful times in more places on the planet than ever before in human history. Like, this is statistically, we know this to be true. But that's the statistics of it. Right now, I feel like as a collective, we are having this emotional experience. And a lot of things are coming forward and coming to the surface. And a big part of that is cleansing. And that cleansing is what we are seeing in Neptune in Pisces. And also the fact that Chiron is in Pisces as well. So let's talk about these particular energies, okay? Neptune is in Pisces. Pisces is an energy of communion. It is an energy of connection. It is the energy that says everyone and everything is connected. There's a supreme compassion with this. And part of compassion, what does compassion involve? It involves a sense of empathy. It involves a sense of honoring the experiences that people have in life, recognizing where there is unity, right? Where at the core of it, there is a unity, a familiarity in a lot of emotions that we experience. And at the same time, especially with Chiron in the mix, especially with Chiron in the sign of Pisces, this is so much about honoring the pain that people have experienced as part of the process of healing. Now, there are different ways that this pain manifests. There are different ways that the pain is realized in the human experience. And honoring all of that, while also the uniqueness of these different experiences, is very much what Chiron in Pisces and Neptune in Pisces is about. So whether it is the personal pains that people go through of addiction, which is, I think, very much about Chiron in Pisces. But Chiron is also wounds, right? It's the wounds, it's the wounded healer. It's the part of you think will never heal. And on a collective level, it is also a part of us now coming forward to our consciousness. Parts that desire healing, but feel like they are not. And then we have Neptune in Pisces as well. And Neptune is a planet of the collective energy, right? It's not Uranian. So Uranus, yes, it is a humanitarian energy. But Uranus is much more about your right to be you and who you are as an individual. Neptune is not about any individual. Neptune is about all of us. So we can acknowledge the unique experiences and acknowledge the commonality at the same time. But also Neptune is very much about healing as well. It's one of the symbols that's associated with physicians, right? With medical school, if you will. So what we have been happening, Neptune's been moving through Pisces since 2012. And what we have been experiencing, Chiron's been in the mix too. So what has been happening for us as a collective is that more and more groups are having the desire to speak of their pain, whether it's collective, whether it's among a certain group, whether it's about a commonality. There are more and more people who understand the value of when you acknowledge a person's experience, right? You just acknowledge it, or you are present for their recounting. That process alone is an alchemical process. It's profoundly transformational. It's Chiron in Pisces, Neptune in Pisces. It changes the energy of the person, of the situation, whatever the case may be. And with Neptune and Chiron in Pisces, it's very much about saying, my pain matters. And this is very much especially true for groups that traditionally, historically, have not felt that desire to heal that, to just have, to be able to speak that and have witness to that is part of the healing that we're all going through, and also individual groups are going through as well. And especially where they haven't had that, or where particular groups haven't felt that their pain was appreciated on a level of others' pain, that right now is especially coming to the surface, and that is especially coming to the surface with Saturn in the sign of Sagittarius. So Saturn is limitation, right? Saturn is borders. Sagittarius is a sign of foreign countries and foreign lands. It is a sign that has to do with different cultures and different cultural understandings as well. And so Saturn right now is moving through the sign of Sagittarius. So I'll give you a little bit of an example. I remember, because I've been doing this for a little while now, way back in the day, way back when Saturn was moving through the sign of Libra. And I remember that was like right around the time that, you know, people started talking about marriage equality. And I was being asked about that when people would interview me, because it has been part of the collective conversation, especially in the West, and because ultimately I'm based in Canada, even though I'm in Mexico, and Mexico has certainly become a home for me these last 3 years. And so that was something that I was being asked about, in particular from American media outlets. And I remember saying at the time that Saturn right now is in the sign of Libra, and I even wrote about this. Libra is the sign of marriage, and Saturn is about keeping things together, holding the tradition, keeping things the way that they have always been. And so while Saturn is in Libra, that the marriage equality that is desired is not going to happen. That move, that progress is not going to happen just yet, but it will eventually. And it did, right? It did take place earlier this year in the US. So similarly, Sagittarius is about those borders. It's about ethnicities and different ethnicities, beliefs, cultures as well, but religions in a more, in a sense of values as well. Like, what values do you hold? Pisces is about the experience, your experience of the divine, right? Sagittarius is about the philosophies and the beliefs behind that. So what we are having now, and one thing that started happening like very quickly, as people started saying, and speaking of what was happening in Paris, very quickly people were saying, well, this whole week, all this stuff has been happening as well. Why does this pain not matter? And what I have felt and what I have been hearing, indirectly most of the time, and it doesn't matter, it's not that you're speaking about a group that you belong to or you identify with. But what I'm hearing is people saying, my pain matters. My pain matters. Why is my pain less than another's pain? So there's that factor right now that is coming very much to the surface. And the thing is, to the ancients, the further out a planet is, the more powerful it is. It is more dominant. So Neptune is further out than Saturn. It is more dominant. But Neptune is a very ephemeral energy, right? It's not like something that you're really holding on to very tightly. It's an energy of water, right? And as I said, cleansing. It's an energy of tears, of release, of letting go of the past, but in a way that heals, in a way that renews, in a way that makes us stronger and better, collectively and individually as well, in a way that ultimately unites us. And so as I'm watching and I'm reading, certain posts, and I'm feeling a cleansing as well happening, because these reactions have been so broad and so varied, and it's been very interesting to me to see the different reactions from people that I didn't expect, and how that has had me reflecting on myself and what I believe and my own orientation to the world, right, quote unquote, in general as well. So I think all of us are going through an individual journey, and at the same time, we are going through a collective journey. And ultimately, this journey is going to move us towards that unity. It is going to move us more towards that unity than we've known before. But it is challenging right now, without a doubt. And it's because that pain is coming to the surface, and that desire to have that pain acknowledged as part of the process of healing is coming forward in a lot of different people and in a lot of groups. I also think, Saturn in Sagittarius, I think about this idea of regions as well, right? Like the different regions on the planet. Now, as I said, I am in Mexico, and it has, friends and fans know I've been talking about this for the last 3 years. An incredible place, incredible people. My heart is full of gratitude for being a guest in this country. And a little over a year ago, what happened was a group of students who were on their way to a protest. So here there's been some very interesting interactions between government and teachers, and these were students in Teachers College, and they essentially were kidnapped and killed. Along the way, in the process as well, a lot of journalists have tried to investigate this that much more thoroughly as well. And that has proven to not be the safest endeavor. And just very recently, really just a few weeks ago, a sort of a report came out, and it was some human rights organization, and they essentially did say that this is, connected to government. And so there is a feeling, as I move through this country as a guest, right, and as a witness, I I have heard people talk about this many times, again and again, as an example of their desire to have the benefits of a democracy, which is the ideals of the country here, and their fear of exercising that democracy fully because of this example. This is a huge, important event that took place for the people of Mexico. And actually, a lot of the media in the Latin communities around South America have talked about this, have been talking about this as well. But I have not seen anything in the Western media, we could say, right? Really nothing. I think I've seen like just a couple of small articles on some like British websites, British newspaper websites. But other than that, it really, I mean, as I'm online, you know, I have my friends I know from Canada, I have my friends I know from university in England, I have my friends that are here in Mexico. And my friends in Mexico have been talking about this. They have wanted this to be acknowledged. But I haven't noticed anybody else, right? Nobody else in any other part of the world is really engaged in this or looking at this. And that's the thing with Saturn and Sagittarius. It becomes so much about, because it's about containment, it's like containing the regions. And so the West, right, and the Western media is considered one region. And we are starting to see that more and more. And my father, he watches news, South Asian news sources, right? When I'm visiting my parents, I see him watching the news. And it has a very different focus, right? This is like it comes in by satellite. And it has a very different focus. And it is talking about those places that people started talking about very soon after news started coming out about Paris and people started expressing their sadness. They said, you know, what about what's happening, what's been happening this whole week in these other places? Those lives matter as well. That is the fact that that news has not reached the Western media in the same way and had the same impact is Saturn in Sagittarius. This is showing us what Saturn in Sagittarius looks like, and that Neptune is saying that we need to dissolve some of this. We need to move past, we need to cleanse, we need to heal. We need to recognize our inherent unity. So while for a lot of people in the West, when it happens in a Western country, this is happening to us. And then when it happens in an Eastern country, that is, you know, in another region. When it happens in a Latino country, that is another region. And so this is a time when, and I'm seeing, like, as I see people talking about this online, it isn't just people of certain backgrounds who are representing their background. It's all of us, it's all people. I'm seeing people acknowledging and wanting to bear witness to the experience and pain of those people who don't feel that they get that for all kinds of reasons. And part of that is this, what has become very acute and what is coming up right now. So Saturn is in Sagittarius, and that is, you know, the message of separation that I'm seeing come forward. A lot of people have been commenting, I've actually seen it a lot, that they have been surprised at who has been an ally and who has been not, who has been saying things that are about the Neptune in Pisces, about that unity, and who has been not, the people that have been more about the borders, more about us and them. And I think there's been a lot of that happening for a lot of people. I've been reading this online. I've been seeing like in my own news feeds, and as I go onto social media and I'm interacting with you guys, it's very interesting to see this myriad of interactions and myriad of reactions taking place. And at the same time, how much people are willing to move towards that Neptune has been really beautiful as well. How much people are willing to acknowledge and bear witness to the pain of groups that maybe they don't belong to say that your pain matters and your experience and your life is equal to any other life. I know that right now, I mean, I look at this, it's a square, okay? Squares are tension. Squares get us to a place where we have to realize where our work is. And sometimes, a lot of times, that work is personal. That work is our own. But that's not to say that those people who work on a very outward and active and collective level to create social change and social justice are doing incredibly valuable work, incredibly valuable work. In fact, if it wasn't for the social justice ancestors, I mean, I am incredibly grateful for. I wouldn't have the life I have, all the options and choices that I and so many other people have been blessed with. I mean, I grew up with that awareness of people who have sacrificed for me. It was sort of ingrained into me. That work is so valuable. And at the same time, a part of that work is also internal. It's about moving to that Neptune, or at the very least being open to that Neptune when that Saturn wants to hold on to what has always been. And Saturn in Sagittarius can become very much about, that rallying cry, like us versus them. This idea like this is an act of war. They hate our culture. They hate our values. When I hear that, that is very Sagittarian, but that's especially Saturn in Sagittarius. That is being so final about it. That is being so like drawing that line, if you will. Whereas the Neptune is saying, let's heal this. Let's evolve beyond this so that we don't have to have this experience again and again as humanity. Let's do something so that even more people are living in more prosperous times in more parts of the world than ever before. So as I look at this conversation, I'm inspired. I have faith by this conversation because it says to me that just like right now, more people in more places than ever in human history live in peace and prosperity than ever. That doesn't mean we're perfect. It doesn't mean that there isn't still a lot of healing to be done, a lot of work to be done, but we are better than ever. And this conversation says to me that right now some very strong things are coming up for a lot of us, collectively, as nations, individually as well. We are seeing ourselves, we're seeing the limits of our compassion. We're being asked to transcend them as well. And ultimately what this is going to do is it will ensure that we move towards that Neptune. We move towards that place where more people are more prosperous and more peaceful. Their experience of life is more peaceful than it will be years from now than it is right now. It is these moments that start to shape us and start to move the collective in a new direction. So the migrant crisis to me is very much also about this conversation, so much about this conversation. Because these are, over 300 million, I think I've heard something like 320 million people are leaving a certain region because 30,000 people are creating havoc, and they don't want any part of that, and they want peace, right? Where they are is become so unbearable that they are risking their lives and experiencing tragedies just to create distance between that experience of violence that is around them. You know, I'll tell you, very recently I was in Mexico City, and I was there, I think that it's the 28th, I was there on the 27th in particular, the night of the 27th. So the 28th is the day of St. Jude, and it is, it's very interesting, very Mexican, one of those really beautiful, special things about being here that you get to see. And so what had happened, I was in Mexico City, and in the night, like late at night on the 27th, because the 28th is the day of the feast, there was like a parade. So there's this parade going on, and then all night there were firecrackers happening as part of this. And it was so shocking to me, like this constant sound of firecrackers, that I felt like, oh my God, I got like a tiny glimpse into what the experience of those living with war, like living in places where there is constant war. It was a tiny, tiny little glimpse, like a split-second glimpse compared to the actuality. But that is part of how, like, it's those little glimpses, and this now is happening on a bigger scale. It is providing all of us with these small glimpses that ultimately are part of moving us towards what I like to call love and wisdom, right? And ultimately, what I think of as love and wisdom, I believe that we're here to embody that energy. I said I wouldn't talk about my beliefs, but I do believe that we are here to more fully own that energy within ourselves and to honor that energy within others. It is at the root of equality. It is to recognize the divinity in everyone and everything. And I believe that that's what we're here to do as humanity. That is the thrust, that is our motivation, and that is our evolution going forward, more and more and more. I trust that this conversation is a part of that in our own individual lives, but also for us as a collective as well. And to me, as I look at this conversation and I think about the migrant crisis, and now because this has happened, all these different reactions are coming up. There's 30 people, acted out in Paris in ways that created a lot of chaos and a lot of pain. And because of that, we are now collectively having to look at and be honest with ourselves about where it is that we need to have that greater sense of compassion, where it is that we are being asked to see the unity in all of us rather than the separation. And this, I think, to us as a collective, it is a challenge. It's a square, right? It is a challenge. And yet, at the same time, Neptune is more powerful than Saturn. Neptune wins. Neptune wins. Neptune is hard to contain. Even Saturn, like as much as they need each other to manifest, still, Neptune's energy it's so fluid. It's hard to contain. It's hard to, make a policy based on Neptune. However, I do believe as I look at this conversation that is the direction that we're moving towards. We are all coming to understand an understanding of how it is that moving beyond pain gets us to love. It is a necessary part of the process. And when that step is denied, denied just in terms of it feels like that is not being permitted or allowed or or spoken to, or it's being dismissed, that in itself is a pain. And it is a need to look at that pain, that ultimately on the other side of it is greater love, is greater wisdom. And I do believe that, especially if you are striving to live consciously, if you're striving to live with greater awareness, that is part of the journey. That is part of a spiritual journey. And some of us do it in a way and have experiences that are painful based on external circumstances. And some of us have experiences that are painful based on specific experiences that we have had. But ultimately, it is by doing the work to move beyond that, that we can more fully own that love that is within us and acknowledge it in other people as well. That's our opportunity now. That is our challenge now. How are we going to support each other in that endeavor? I do have faith. I do believe that we will find our way as we have continued to. We're human. We do it sometimes, you know, there's a saying, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, sometimes stumbling, right? Sometimes grudgingly. But we are moving forward and we are moving towards that greater sense of compassion. This migrant crisis right now is our invitation. It is our mirror to help us understand that energy of compassion that much more, to help us to make those very healthy distinctions that ultimately will allow us to see the divinity more readily in the individual, rather than thinking of people as masses, but to see them as individuals and to recognize that divinity within them, that presence that is within them. That is part of the opportunity now. And I do think that this moment, as much as it hurts, right? As much as all kinds of emotions are coming forward, this moment, I do believe, is part of that process taking us there. I will stop there. Thank you so much for your trust. Thank you so much for being here. I'm truly so grateful for it. Until we connect again, take care.